are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the Coronavirus Sessions. Again, bringing you a little daily weekday nugget of podcast to talk about how business owners here in Gainesville are navigating this coronavirus. Definitely had a lot of impact so far, but our goal here is to save as many businesses and as many jobs as possible through this through these conversations, right? If we can just learn from one another and encourage one another, then we'll get through it. So before we get into it, I want to remind everybody, like, our podcast also needs your support. There's a couple different ways you can support us. We've had a couple people go and buy shirts, swag. We got mugs on our website. Just go to whoagnv.com. If you are a small business out there and you're interested in becoming a sponsor, your sponsorship would be, very, very nice at this point. We would appreciate it very much. So definitely feel free to reach out to me about sponsorships. That's Collin, Collin, at repaintthewall.com. And of course, like, if you just want to make a small donation, you can do so via Venmo at Collin Austin, COLLINAUSTIN. Even if it's $1, man, send us $1. Like, anything helps. Like, this money is going to funding this podcast and to supporting our team who does the editing and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So we'd appreciate any support that we can get. But we also know this is very trying times, and our purpose here is to give as much value to the businesses that come on the show and to the businesses and business professionals that are listening. Because, like I said, we want to make sure that we can navigate this thing and save as many of us as we possibly can, because this is the craziest thing that I've ever been through. My name is Collin Austin, and I'm your host, and my co-host is the one magical, mystical Michael Dees. What is up, man?
Not much, man. It's funny. I was really excited to see Eric's name pop up, and we'll introduce him in a second. But, like, we had his episode, I think it was 95, released right at the end of February. He was doing well. We were not. I had just had a bad episode of food poisoning the day before. You had lost your voice, so I ended up on the spur hosting that episode. Now, in a weird turn, we have our health for the most part, and these are the circumstances we're bringing him back on, so that kind of sucks. But maybe one day we'll get to talk to Eric and things will be going good on both sides.
Yeah, dude, I was struggling during that episode.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and I'm like, well, again, kind of reflecting back to some of these articles that have come out of, like, whether or not this thing has been around since, late 2019. I'm like, now I'm kind of like pondering. I'm kind of like, I wonder if it's true or not. Collin had a bad cough and respiratory infection January and February. Like, I wonder.
Right.
Anyway, our man Eric Lenasbunt from Buntline. What is it? Backline.
Backline. There you go.
Bunt Backline Event Services. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going with no show notes. Before I had show notes and I could, like, read off a piece of a paper. Now I'm going completely by memory. I'm kind of impressed that I remembered all of that. But Eric, man, it's good to see you. I know that you're dealing with a lot right now, and I know that we just had you on the podcast, but I felt like it was important to get you back on here because I wanted to do a little quick catch up, because if there is one industry that I know has felt the impact of this, it has been the event industry. So why don't you real quick give our audience who might not have heard episode 95 just a really quick background as to who you are and what you do, but at the same time dive into the impact that you felt from this virus.
Cool. Yep, it's Bunt Backline Event Services. I'm Eric. So we do sound, lighting, staging, basically anything. If you go to either a concert or, we do the Chamber of Commerce meetings, basically anything where people gather together and do stuff together, which, pretty quickly leads into it doesn't take much to understand where that might be a problem in the current situation. So that's what we do. We going into this, we have 16 employees here in Gainesville. We work all over the state, and we do a couple tours throughout the country. But most of our stuff is here locally or regionally. So that's kind of what we do. We serve a lot of churches as well, which has been a little bit of, pun intended, saving grace as well, because we've still had there's been a lot of streaming, and then we've got a couple drive-in services that we recently started doing. So that's kind of what we do. And they said you wanted me to talk a little bit about impact, or what were you wanting
Yeah,
to?
I mean, so like take us back to a few weeks ago when this thing started to unfold. You know, it's actually my favorite question to ask, and I've been pretty consistent in asking all of our business owners this, and just business professionals, everybody that we've interviewed so far, was like, what was that initial impact, the first things that you did when you realized that this was about to go down, like what were some of the conversations you were having with your team? Really just take us back to those very first moments. I mean, from the way you felt to all of it, you know?
Gotcha. Well, so interestingly, I had just gotten back. It was like the 11th or so. So it's been several weeks now. And I had just gotten back from this crazy experience in Suriname with the band that I work with in South America, and ended up came back in the middle of the night because there was almost altercations with the promoter. It was crazy. So I came back from this crazy situation, flew out, hadn't slept, flew out, left and got back to Miami at 9 a.m, then drove from Miami to Gainesville, went to sleep, and I woke up and came into the office the next day after all that craziness. And the phone started ringing about 9 a.m. And what had happened was basically that was the day after the NCAA tournament canceled. And then the NBA season canceled. And then basically, so from the event side of things, those two things, at least from my eyes, were kind of the first dominoes. And because as soon as those major events started happening, then it was a ripple effect. And I kid you not, within 48, the first day, I think we fielded 30 something phone calls of cancellations. And so for an events business, as you can imagine, in Florida, March and April are two of our biggest months. So between stuff with the university, all their big concerts, Easter is a big one for us as well. We do a lot of large church events for Easter that's coming up here. So we had just a slew of events. The weather's nice. Everybody wants to do festivals, different things. So within that first 2 days, 48 hours, we counted it up. We had 67 event cancellations for approximately $220,000. That was within a 48-hour period. And that was basically everything canceled into about the first week of April. So that was basically just March and the first week of April. And then some of that's a little downstream, people that canceled multiple events. They just said, we're clearing the calendar until we figure this out. So yeah, that was kind of the initial. So initially it was kind of shock. What's going on? And because I had not been, to be honest, I had not really been paying much attention. And I was in South America for a week and just kind of off the grid on a lot of it. I started to see a little bit of rumblings on some Facebook groups that I'm in of other event professionals that were saying, hey, we just had some cancellations due to this thing for some big conferences and things, big meetings, national meetings that were happening. So it was a little bit in my consciousness, but not really. I hadn't really thought of it as a real thing that was going to happen yet. And then got back and it just the next 4 to 6 weeks of business just disappeared in 48 hours, 100 to nothing, so it was pretty wild. So yeah, the first things we did is I instantly went into action mode as far as I knew, okay, so I don't have a ton of debt, but I do have, I have a mobile stage that we use, and I have some LED walls. And so I have leases on those. So I actually immediately, within the day or two, called and contacted the leasing agent to see if I could get deferments, because I knew we were going to have money problems quickly. So started on those immediately, talked to my mortgage broker for my building immediately. I did all that within the first 48 hours and just started okay, these are the big outgoing expenses. We got to look at these right away and try to nip this in the bud. Also figuring everybody else in the world is going to be doing this shortly. So it was interesting because as an events company, we saw it about 7 to 10 days before restaurants or anybody else, because it started to pair off. And so I kind of felt like I knew what was coming. If it was starting there, we were just first, we're going to be the first to go because it's large gatherings, but I felt like it was going to trickle down pretty quickly. So I felt like it was important to kind of get in front of some of that. And then same with, as soon as they started revealing like SBA loans and things like that, tried to get in on, applying for those and that sort of thing.
How were those conversations with those vendors? I mean, when you called your mortgage company and that kind of thing, I mean, what was their response? What were they telling you?
Well, my equipment leasing agent mostly does leases for my industry. So his phone was also ringing off the hook like ours was. So I was not the only one in my industry that was calling up and going, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay $6,000, $10,000 worth of equipment leases next month because I no longer have work for the foreseeable future. And it's in there. So the interesting thing is it's in their interest to grant you those deferments because like, what are they going to do? Repo all this gear and sell it to who? Well, there's no industry left. Like literally the entire industry, from Live Nation, from the biggest players down to the trunk slammers and garage guys. Like it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's just disappeared in a day. So it's absolutely like in their best interest to defer things for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it takes. And because what are they going to do? They can't sell a $130,000 stage to anybody. There's no buyer for it. So they were quick. My leasing agent, I have it's 3 different leases on equipment. And he said 2 of the vendors were already had programs that they rolled out that day because their phones were blown up. And then another one was a little slower. It took a bunch of follow up and a couple weeks to get them to do something. But again, they knew what was coming. I think they saw it as well.
Yeah, I think it's super smart of you to jump on it that quick, and to get right on it. Because I'm at this stage, I'm still kind of doing that. I mean, I really focused on the government lending and that kind of thing, and now I'm reaching out to vendors and even credit card companies. I mean, like I know you say you don't have a lot of debt, but we've got some debt, so I'm gonna be reaching out to credit card companies and from what I understand, a lot of them have help in terms of canceling interest for the month and that kind of stuff. So I would encourage our audience to definitely reach out to your vendors and do what you can to have those
sorry, my wife was able to do that with a couple of her business credit cards, and they I think they're forgiving, at least hers were forgiving interest for this month at least, and then they said you could call back next month and ask for it again if you were still in hardship, those sort of things. So I think, again, it's in everybody's best interest to work with you, because the choices are either work with you or just never get paid is kind of that's the environment I think we're looking at,
Yeah, no, that's really smart. You inspire me, Eric, because you really went into this action, just started taking action. I think for a lot of businesses and stuff, they losing $220,000 of contracts in 48 hours, a lot of people would have just entered a state of depression and would have just sunk, I mean, did it even cross your mind that, I mean, did you hey, this might be it, this dream is over? Or, I mean, what was happening up here in your dome?
Well, I'd be lying to you if I told you I haven't consumed a much larger amount of tequila and bourbon in the last 3 weeks than I find generally acceptable. So I'm not going to say it's been easy, but I feel like it's helped that we've been on a series of momentum for the last 2 years, and I feel like we were we were up 30% year to date already this year in March. So we were just killing it. So it was just this unforeseen thing. It was nothing we could have done, nothing we did, nothing we could do to prevent it. So I just felt like I just kind of went into protection mode of, I've been working on this for 15 years. I'm not going to let this one event, I'm not going to lay down and just quit on it. I just went into instant survival mode. And I'll be honest too, it gets better every day, but it's a daily wave of I just want to give up and cry and crawl in a corner to okay, I'm going to kick this thing's ass. It's literally every day, just up and down, multiple times a day. At the beginning, it was more 10, 12 times a day up and down. Now it's once a day, I might get the low feelings, but mostly I'm okay, we just need to we just need to do something. What's practical? How do we cut expenses? How do we save as many employees and positions as we can? How do we get through this?
Dude, the emotions of entrepreneurship. I've had the same thoughts, man. I've been in this place of like, man, maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just time to throw in the towel. Maybe, like, done this for 16 years. It was a great run. We did some incredible things. Maybe it's just time. And then I go into a place of, no, I'm going to be one of the guys that defies the impossible and gets us through this. Like I go into that place knowing I'm like, so many businesses are going to be in a place where they do fail because they weren't prepared for this. And I was like, and to be truthful, like, I don't think that we were prepared for this. Like, I don't have like a stack of reserves or anything. So like, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm gonna get us through this. We're gonna pull through. I mean, Mike, what's been going through your head with that in regards to that? 'Cause, I mean, there's just so many ups and downs right now.
You're right, and I think that you're right when you say that we weren't prepared for it. But I think one thing I would add to that, though, is we are fortunate to be where we were today versus, say, if this happened on the same timeline a year ago. And I say that fortune because just some of the things that happened naturally in our business year in 2019 that completely, disjoint from anything COVID. It didn't happen for a year later. But some of those things we had to kind of navigate and weather and lean out and stuff like that. If it had happened that year, we would have been in a really bad position. But I think that it happening this year, it doesn't mean that we're in a good position, but I think we were able to weather it a lot better. So were we prepared for something like this? I think the answer is no, but were we in much better of a position than we could have been? I think that answer is absolutely yes. So that's, like I said, that's not our own doing. That wasn't because we're great entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of fortune there. And if you're spiritual, a lot of, God grace. But yeah, it's a roller coaster.
I've been saying it's all divine intervention, man. I mean, in 16 years, this is the first year where we haven't placed a scooter order. Yeah. Like normally in the first quarter, we're like placing orders, looking at August, like buying containers. I'm talking like containers of product, getting it ready to like come over because we know it's going to be a few months, 2 to 3 months for it to ship and get over here.
Right.
And
March is ordering time.
March is ordering time.
March is usually container. It's 4 month lead time. We receive in July, so it's ready to go in August. So to have a March go by that we're not making those orders, my inbox isn't full of, hey, like, what colors are we going to get? How many from each distributor? Do we want to do 2? Do we want to do, like, that didn't happen this year.
Yeah, I know a lot of that was because we had inventory left from last year. We like things didn't hit our marks for 2019, but we just ended up saying, okay, well, we're going to carry this over into 2020, and we're not gonna go place a bunch of orders. And it's tough because we've had distributors like reaching out and saying, hey, like, what are you guys doing in terms of ordering and stuff? I'm just like, hey guys, like, super sorry, we're gonna wait and we're gonna see. We're gonna sell what we have because we got plenty of inventory right now. And man, am I like Mike said, if this would have hit us last year, we would be stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory right now. Whereas right now we're not in that situation. And I think we're gonna have enough inventory to get us through busy season if there is one in August. So, dude, it's been interesting, man. It's been interesting. So.
So Eric, let me ask you, like, what kind of contracts, cancellation policies were in place? Did you have any security with deposits ahead of time or anything like that? Did they have to be refunded? Like, how has that affected you? And on the flip side of this, is that going to change? Are you going to change that literature in any kind of contracts that you might use to prevent about this kind of stuff going forward?
Good question. So our contracts are we do 50% non-refundable to book. However, in light of this is kind of out of everyone's control, it's not the client canceling their gig for whatever reason. Anybody who asked for it, we gave them, I mean, it was kind of a case by case basis, but for the most part, we gave them all but like 10% back. So we kept a very small amount because we had done work and we had processed with our credit card, and so there was expense that went in there. But for the most part, if people asked for it, we gave them most of their deposit back. We have some customers that went ahead and that we do a lot of work with and said, hold it and basically put it on our account and we'll apply it to another event, sort of thing. So we were trying to incentivize people to like not bankrupt us by pulling all their money that they've deposited, so that we can, and we have some really amazing clients. We've had several clients that basically are like, hey, this is going to come back and we need you when it comes back. You've been an amazing partner and we want you to survive. So yeah, and then we had some unfortunate ones, like we have a couple festivals at UF, and the way state contracts work is you don't get anything up front. So they just disappeared, and those were, I think that collectively was $35,000 worth of work that is I don't want to say mostly profit, but it's very high profit percentage because it's stuff that we own and it's our crew that's on payroll and those type of things. So, some of it just disappeared. So it was a little bit of a mix, but I tried to I tried to golden rule it and just like, how would I want to be treated if I was putting on an event? Or, we do events with other companies. So if I had a deposit down already with somebody, how would I want to be treated? And I did. I've got a couple $1,000s with a couple of production companies in Belize that I'd already paid because we were supposed to. The band I work with is supposed to do an Easter weekend thing there, and obviously we're not flying to Belize this weekend. So I just asked both of them. I said, "Hey, can you hold that because we're supposed to be back in August for another show? Can we just apply that to August?" They were both same deal. They were grateful. They were like, "Cool, that helps us a lot to hold it, and we'll see you in August." So. That was kind of how we approached that. We've taken a hit from we have some other production companies, other people in our event industry that owed us, that we're on good terms with, but like had net 30 terms, let's say, and so we have a pretty good amount of outstanding debt. People owe us money for work that we've already done. That if we see it, I would be pleasantly surprised. But that's another probably $30,000 to $50,000 if I added it up of money that is, they can't pay it. Like I can't, what am I going to do? Got to take it from them. They don't have it. Their clients aren't paying them either. Their events disappeared too. So, again, it's that domino effect that kind of affects everybody, but, yeah.
From the human, I'm fascinated by the human dynamic of that, and the situation where you're say keeping a 10% of a deposit. Were most of the clients, were they relieved to get that 40% back? Did you have anybody that wasn't good enough and they were complaining about you keeping that 10, or were mostly people empathetic?
No, not a single person. Everyone was grateful because, again, it was very clear in the contract. It's non-refundable deposit. It's supposed to basically cover our expenses leading up to the gig, which, everything from preparation, all the advanced work, all the planning work, as well as the actual warehouse preparation. So actually I think we actually bought a lot of goodwill approaching it that way, because I was also honest with them, hey, I gave those options. Hey, can we either save it for a reschedule, and if you want to reschedule, we'll apply it 100%, we'll completely, as if you just booked that other gig with that money. If you need the refund, we also totally understand that. But we need to keep this small amount to cover our expenses thus far, because it's also not our fault. It's not their fault. It's also not our fault. So we're just trying to also, make sure that we can cover our folks as well. So no, it was actually, the responses were 100% gratitude, and actually more than one off the top of my head was, said something along the lines of, hey, we will definitely use you in the future and we'll remember this, basically, that you were generous in that way and you didn't have to do that. So we're grateful. So, again, it's just trying to treat people well. The bigger challenges with all those cutting expenses, honestly, the hardest part of all this has been, like I told you, kind of went into action mode on cutting expenses and those different things. But that also did mean with 16 employees, we pretty quickly had to go ahead and lay a few people off just because we weren't going to have the work for them. We've been very fortunate. We've only had to lay off 4 of the 16. I know those 4 don't feel very fortunate, and I feel terrible about that. And those are definitely honestly, those have been the hardest, on that emotional question, having those conversations, because all of them were great employees, great people, didn't deserve it at all. You know, it was just not, but they were, you know, we had to stay alive as long as possible and try to get the other folks on payroll at least something. We had to make the most strategic, you know, cuts and layoffs we could. And, you know, my hope was that they could get this increased unemployment and those things. So my hope was it actually was also better for them than just like getting 5 hours of work here and there or something like that as we had it, but to do them well as well. I don't know if that's happening because from what I'm hearing is nobody's able to get onto the unemployment site because it's broken. And I know our roommate that lives at our house most of the time with my wife and I, she also was laid off and she has not been able to get through for like over a week trying to submit for unemployment every day. And so hopefully some of that's worked out, but those were the hardest things, was that intention of like not wanting to, you know, not wanting to have to go there and not wanting to have to lay people off and put other people in hardship as well. But at the end of the day, I just don't have that much money in my bank account, you know?
I think business owners, I think there's going to be some business owners that are approaching that for the very first time ever. And so do you have any advice as to how to, like you, that was your first time doing that? So
I've
like
to lay anyone off for, I mean, any layoffs I've ever done have been either cause or, you know, they've not been layoffs, they've been firings. So
right.
I've never, because we've only ever grown, to be honest. This is the first time we've ever had any kind of retraction or contraction at all.
So what did you learn from that, from laying off your first few people, and what advice would you have for the small business owners out there that are going to be put in that position in terms of how to navigate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my approach for it was to try to be as empathetic as possible. So to try to put myself in their shoes, like if I'm on the other side of the table, what would be most helpful for me? And that's to some degree, that's a little different for every employee, even just how I talk to them. You know, and one of my employees has been a fantastic employee, been with me a long time. He was like, "Oh man, we're cool. Like my kids are home from school. I gotta, you know, like I would pay more in childcare anyway. So it's all good. It's going to work out. I appreciate you talking to me quickly and early." You know, and then I know a couple others took it very hard and it was very difficult. But I just tried to, you know, again, we did it early. We did it pretty much right away, and they saw what was going on. You know, I can't speak too much for them, but I tried to just approach it compassionately, and approach it quickly, and let them know, like, hey, I do really have your best interest in mind. I also, I think this is important actually. I gave them a choice as well. I said, I can lay you off, or so you can seek unemployment or other work or whatever you need to do, or you can stay on as an employee. I just don't have hours for you. So you'll be hours as we have them available, which I'm not predicting is very many. And I'll say that, like, I feel like that was extremely well received. And I talked to another friend of mine who's a manager at a production company, who actually, after the fact, after I had already done it that way, told me that, like, that's what he wanted to hear from his boss, from the owners of the company, because, you know, he had basically said, I don't want unemployment. I want, you know, I'd like to be able to go in and work, and even if it's deferred or no, you know, or no payment right now, or maybe there isn't any work, that's just not a route he wanted to go. So just giving them the choice too of like, hey, do you want this? Now they all chose actually to go ahead and, you know, be laid off, but I felt like it was, again, an extra level of like compassion and empathy for them to say, hey, I don't want to assume that you want to be laid off. You know, maybe you've got enough money in your savings account and you just want to, you know, wait this out. But I think that helped, you know.
Do you check in with them? Is that even appropriate to do? Do you just let the situation speak for itself? Like, I mean, I know it's a vulnerable thing, but like, I think I would, like, personally, if I was put in that position, I would fight against over manipulated situation, or like helicoptering it. You know, I'd want to know how they do, and like, you know, checking in with them all the time. And I think that someone could very easily make that argument to me that that's not healthy to do. So I'm just curious. Like, I mean, do you check in with them outside of you can reach out to me if you need to, or do you just kind of, is it a clean cut and hope the best for them?
Again, 3 out of the 4 folks that we had to lay off have been with us over a year, so a good amount of time. So yeah, I've been checking in, and it's not, truthfully, it's not much more than a, hey, you hanging in there sort of thing via text. It's probably, I don't know. I think it's probably not very appropriate for me to initiate much more than that, because there's nothing I can really do. So it's, I feel like more likely to cause harm than help, or, again, trying to empathize of like the things and the feelings that they're going through. And so, yeah, I think I like to check in, or have members of my team that are still here. They've been checking in as well, because that's a little more of a peer thing. So we've been doing a little bit of that just with other members of the team. Like, hey, I heard from so-and-so, yeah. So I would be careful with that, would be my advice. But, I think if your employees are initiating it, then it's great. Just show compassion and don't promise anything you can't promise, and don't make excuses, I think, is the other thing of like, I apologize. I said, I really wish we could pay you. It's out of my control. I have no, I'm really sorry. We just can't keep paying you, basically. So I want to release you to do what's best for you.
We got to wrap up in a minute. This has been super interesting, though, because this is the first one of these that we've had. But I really want to take a minute to look at the future of the events industry. I mean, when you like really think about 6 months down the road, I mean, is everything back to normal? Do you see events ever being the same after this whole thing?
All right, so I'm very optimistic by nature, which is also how I got through a lot of those early stages we talked about of like, and just went into action of like, okay, people love live music. They have always loved live music. People love drinking together, hanging out together, celebrating together. Like, these are all things that people like. I think it will take quite a while for the scar tissue to resolve. And I think a lot of folks won't go out at the same levels that they did for quite some time. So even if this is cleared, I'm hopeful that we start doing some level of events by the end of the summer, start of next school semester. I've gone ahead and kind of mentally, it's been helpful for me to just go, okay, I'm losing hope, like, that anything's going to happen before, late August, early September. And then hopefully, that's normally a busy season. Hopefully we get back to work. I have a feeling through the end of the year, it's going to be very light. I think people are going to be reluctant to go back out. But I'll also say the longer we stay cooped up, the more we're going to want to give each other hugs and drink beers together, So I don't know, man. I think we have short memories on stuff, man. I think we really do. And I think we're social by nature. I think we like being together. It's how many people are just like in a bad state right now because we can't see each other. I'm one of them. I'm an extrovert and I freaking love hanging out with people. So I think it will take a while. I don't know that it'll be back at the level it's been. It's been a bit of a peak the last year or two. I don't think it'll be at that level for probably several years. But that's okay. I think it'll reshape, and I'm pretty positive it'll come back, man. It came back not the same thing, but the events industry took a huge hit after 9/11 because people didn't want to gather in large groups. They were afraid of terrorist attacks and different things. There have been other, again, not exactly comparable, but similar like sentiments of people not wanting to go out and be together as much. I think we'll start back with smaller gatherings and things like that, and then it'll work its way back up, and people will, again, you want to see your favorite band. Like, you want to go hang out. You want to go drink with your friends. I think it'll come back. But
okay.
So where's So I was just to say, where's the opportunity? I know you did mention, like, obviously, like a lot of churches and stuff are going to online streaming things. Is that something that you're able to do to kind of help get you from this point to hopefully when things are over? And then beyond that, like, what's the opportunity? I mean, is it something that you can offer a gift certificate for at a discounted rate? Like, I don't know. Like, I have a lot of friends. My girlfriend is in the event industry. Like, is it something that you can do a $1,000 gift certificate for $500 that you pay right now, and you can use it towards whatever you want. Like, I don't know, but like, what can you do for future use to kind of help put money into your stores to be able to navigate this?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're cash hungry right now, then there's definitely some stuff like that, but it's still going to be, I think those things, at least right now, it's just so uncertain. I don't think that you'll get many bites on that even for the fall. I think there's just too many people that are, terrified that this is going to drag on.
Right.
And maybe rightfully so. So for us, we've been, again, leveraging relationships with people that we already have relationships with. So we're doing a drive-in church every week at First Baptist of Ocala. So we have our big stage parked out there pretty much permanently at the moment. We have some video screens out there. And we go down every week and we set them all up, and they have a couple hundred cars drive in and do their thing, and nobody gets out of their cars, and everybody does it kind of safely and great. And it's awesome. And see, that's what leaves me optimistic is people are doing that and excited about it. And there's great buzz about it because, again, even if they're just like next to them across the way in a car waving to them and not getting out or doing anything unsafe, it's just like, okay, I'm out of the house. I see people I know and love. It's reassuring. It feels good. So we've got that's helping us kind of sustain right now. And then we also have I'll give them a plug. We have a digital streaming series that we are doing with one of our venues that we're the house production company for at the Riley Arts Center in Ocala. And they're having they do 3 to 4 streaming events a week. It's on our Facebook page and theirs. And their concerts, they're really, really good concerts. We've had jazz, classical, rock, and we stream them. They're like really professionally done, sound, lighting, all that. And we take 3 guys and we have a set of cameras and streaming gear and all that. And we're producing those. So that's some of the stuff we're doing to kind of stay busy and bridge the gap a little bit. I'm still kind of looking for like what the best opportunities are. I think for us, it's going to be to continue to be pared down as long as possible as far as, staff, and kind of be as lean as possible for as long as possible and be cautious as we ramp back up whenever things start back up. So I think that's kind of my strategy right now. I don't have a great, the big opportunity or anything at the moment.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll see if that reveals itself, or maybe we just kind of go back to somewhat business as usual.
Right on.
Let's hope so, man. Let's hope everything, picks back up and it doesn't take a long time and we can get all those people hired back and you can hire more. And we can keep cranking. It's, I know it's a trying time, but, Gainesville's lucky to have business owners like you in it, man. Because just hearing that stuff, and I thank you for the transparency, because I know, I know it's going to provide a lot of value to those that are listening. It provides a lot of value and insight to me, but I also know that it's extremely difficult to handle and not easy decisions, so thank you for that. And if anybody can use your services, where should they reach out? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, sure. It's Bunt, like in baseball, Bunt, backline.com, or I'm Cheerful Sound Man on Instagram. We're on Facebook, all that as well. We're pretty easy to find. Bunt Backline Event Services. If you need something, let me know. We are in business. We are around. We're not keeping regular hours or anything, but we can help you on one of those type of events.
Keeping my fingers crossed that we get to pull off this live podcast with the All-In conference, because that was one of the things. I know the chamber was going to do this All-In conference again at the Hilton, and we were going to podcast live in front of an audience. And I know that you're a big piece of the setup and production on that. And so hopefully, whether it's, probably not going to be this July, I don't know, we'll find out, but at the very least, we'll get the opportunity to do that, because I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we're going to need the support and the learning, and I think we're going to need the teamwork together with other business owners to get us all back on our feet too.
Absolutely. Collaborations are key right now. Support each other, lift each other up, and stay strong, Gainesville. We're going to get through this, but it's going to be a team effort from all of us for sure. So, Eric, thanks again, my friend. Good to see you. Stay strong. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know. And Gainesville, this is the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa.
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 Whoa. We will see you later.